Hello everyone. Evan Abrams here, coming in to recap our week of video challenges. Thanks for being with me. Thanks for taking part in the challenges. I hope you all learned a lot about Premiere and After Effects and video and the weird, wacky things that we can do with it. Thanks everyone in the chat for being with me. Steve and I talking about the various geographies and localities of Ottawa. It was a good time. Anki, Jack, Reverb Mike, Robert Umacorn, Laura, Monica. Oh, everyone has been with us. Valdair, hello. Laura. And of course, Sam holding it down in the chat. Always good. Always good to see everyone coming in. We are going to review what the challenges were, and then we're going to look at some of the specifics that were sent in, and maybe I'll talk a little bit about some extra pointers that can be helpful coming off of those. So it's going to be a rich, full experience. But of course, if you missed any of the challenges, you can always go back and watch the replays, replays on YouTube, replays here on Behance. And of course, make sure you subscribe in those places so that you know when new challenges are happening. Unfortunately, no bacon and cheese. It's a hard act to follow. So we'll see what we can do. Anyway, here's the screen. Here's what we started with. We started off with January 9th, green screening. So we had some wonderful green screening, removing the greenness from behind people. It's not that difficult a process. You start with some footage and a person being filled on green. We put a little garbage mask around them, boop, and then we remove that using our Ultra key, and then we put some stuff behind it, and then we try to color match it. We were able to color match it using the Lumetri color or Lumetri, and it works out really well, leveraging little color match hack in there. Comes out pretty well. You know, the big takeaways from this are so much of the ease of even being able to do green screening comes from how fastidious you are with lighting your green screen and lighting your subject. And of course, a lot of little details that are going to create the matte around our character, our subject, whatever the subject is, be it human or otherwise. There's so much great stuff you can do with a big piece of green muslin in a room. And Ultra Key does a pretty good job. Now, we help it out by using a mask on opacity here to chop away the parts of the footage that are unnecessary. This person doesn't move around a lot, so we don't have to worry about those other pixels on the outside. Put in some garbage, get that garbage mat on there, and then we can cut in tight. And we don't have to be as broad with our settings, right? We can be tighter to the figure, and we have a lot more. We just have a lot more latitude when it comes to the numbers when we're working this in. So anyway, let's have a look at what was brought to us. I've tried to download them so that we can play them back very quickly. So let's see here, challenges. We got 3 of them that came in. This one here from Discord user OW, OW has combined all of the things. I really like this. This produces a wonderful comic effect. One thing I want to point out, right? Oops, as we are previewing this, let's go ahead so I can scrub this thing here. So one thing I want to point out is when we're dealing with areas like this, you see up here in the hair where we have our subject and that hair is still nice and bright, right? Because the light is, of course, shining on the top of their head. You know, it doesn't work, as convincingly, right? So this is usually where we want to get into not only spill suppression, but sort of adding our own spill to it, creating a kind of halo around them. Now, the tools to do such a thing, what we call a light wrap, are things that you would want to do in After Effects. So if your footage like this has a lighting scenario that sort of clashes with or challenges your background, we might need to tighten that up. Or those are definitely in the highlight spectrum, right? Those are in the lighter side, the lightest parts of of the image. So we could probably dial that in using color correction specific to the highlights. So Lumetri color might be able to get us something going on there, or working our spill suppression in the Ultra key itself. So if we come down here to the spill suppression situation and tweaking the luminance of the area that is the spill, that might help. So anyway, thoughts on that. Lots of fastidious things to get into. Let's see what Dorina sent in here. Next. I like this very chilly situation. And the color matching has worked out pretty well. I got to say, the color matching really sells it for me. One thing that you may often want to consider, right, is how in focus the various elements appear, right? So just for this, a little thing you might want to think about, this subject, incredibly crisp, right? But this background plate has incredible crispness across a pretty broad range of the environment. What you might want to do is actually just apply a little bit of a blur to your background plate, adding, maybe a sort of Gaussian blur or even a fast blur. If you have, say, multiple plate elements that are going back away from your subject, thinking about blurring them so that you can make sure that they seem to fit with even the focal range here. But really good, really nice key on the hair and the ears, and the sweater has worked out wonderfully as well. So I think that's working out. So conveying depth in a thing so that they don't appear to be right smack on top of each other, always very difficult to achieve. One thing that can even help with that is placing things in front, sort of an overall filter over top of everything. So applying Lumetri color again to a filter layer that would come on top of these. So now, of course, I need to spend less time talking about each individual thing so that we can actually get through them. This one is from D2 Bobber, I think. And here we go. We've got multiple people coming through, getting scanned, and that's been put over top of some nice footage in the background here. Now, this is, of course, a complicated shot in order to sell the effect. Because people need to have shadows, the floor is reflective, so we would want to try to do something with that. This is why we see in a lot of budget green screen things, we actually see that they will film people purposefully avoiding showing where feet touch the ground. So that's always a good idea if you're getting this kind of thing. The other thing that becomes tricky is the skewing of the floor, right? As you can see, the one person seems to be kind of walking above and away. When the angles don't quite match up, that's when things get a little bit wacky. But keys look great. I think everything comes together pretty nicely in terms of the keying. So that is the good stuff. I'll keep forgetting to blur the background. Don't worry, you're nailing it. All right, so that was one of our challenges. Well, let's have a peruse of some of our other challenges were we challenged to do. We've got going on light leak transitions. Let's crack open that project so that we can enjoy basically dovetailing, abutting two pieces of footage with a third over top to sandwich those so that we can enjoy them. We used a lot of blending modes to get this blending the way we want. So let's see what we got. Again, got this one here coming in from OW, which is great. Oh, they made use of the rabbit footage that was challenging to make happen. So we got some keying going on and some light leaks, I believe, that are going on. Yep, here we go. We're going down the rabbit hole with this. I like it. I like that we have this kind of chaos, and then we're moving over here. It's fun to play up the psychedelic nature. There's no right way or wrong way. Use those blending modes, mix them in. Great to see. Now, what else we did? We talked about some hand-drawn effects. So let's dip into those. The only thing I'll really say about kind of light leaky stuff is really play around with it. Sometimes you really have to try to find the footage that you're looking for to make this stuff work. Now, the hand-drawn effect work, we started with a big plate of stuff, garbage mat some of it away, and then we used blending modes to bring forward only the lines we're interested in. and then some turbulent displace, and then animating that turbulent displace. So that worked out pretty nicely, I gotta say. And again, Darina crushing it, and OW back in here. So let's get a look here. This looks spooky already. Some wonderful footage. Here we go. Oh yeah, and inverting it, boop, 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 into the woods. Lightning bolt. I love it. This reminds me a lot of Night in the Woods, the video game. But I like the use. I like the use of stuff kind of shaking around as it comes in. I think this is a great use of isolating these objects here. I like the blurring in transition. I think that's pretty great. I'd say these fit. This stuff fits quite nicely. One thing that I might advise, in playing around with this stuff, when stuff kind of ends abruptly, right? When it just kind of stops, and then it seems to resolve, you may want to consider sort of ramping up or ramping down the amount as we're coming to a standstill. So it feels like things are either very chaotic and then becoming more organized, or having like a last gasp of movement before it finally settles. Something to think about. Using movement in a way that attracts the eye is the intention. So is usually the way we signal to people that they should be looking at this and then this, points of differentiation that take place. So just in any form of design, the points of differentiation are what attract attention. And in motion design, motion is another dimension of difference. So something to think about with that. All right, now we got one more hand-drawn example that has come in. OW dropping this on us. Hey, I like this pixelated kind of rabbit over here. This is nice. Ooh, a different kind of stuff going on. Loving it. This is fun. This is good. That's working out. So good use of things being wavy. This has a very punk rock aesthetic to it. I like that. I like this use of the pixelating and kind of ramping of the color values through. I think that's a lot of fun. One thing I will suggest again, just on the other side of things, clearly leaning heavy into an aesthetic here. Again, as things kind of enter or leave, just having those definitively show up, definitively exit can be a good move, because again, we're attracting attention and we want to compose our frame around those ideas. But yeah, okay, there we go. That's our hand-drawn challenge. Now, cut to the 12th, January 12th, we're talking about responsive titles. Let's cue those up. Now, we were talking about making elements responsive to each other in the essential graphics, so that if you type something else, other elements are responding to them. Man, I should have asked people to actually send me their work files so that we can check what's responsive to which. We did get some submission on that one. Darina, again, crushing it with these all over the video challenges. That's what we like to see. And learn, persevere. Oh boy, I can't read. Thrive. I love it. Now, it's awful when the titles never respond. Yeah. So one thing I'll say is, I know you submitted these twice and you kind of slowed them down. Again, I'm gonna say it. I like things that are fast and staccato and abrupt. So as long as they're kind of arriving forcefully, hanging out for long enough to read them, and then going away forcefully, I think that's great. Looks like things are resizing nicely, and if they quickly resize for you and you're able to make more permutations, try out different things with them, then the stuff is working out for us, right? And hopefully that was good. Now, just to recap a little bit of that lesson of those ideas, let's go ahead and get our window Essential Graphics open. Bloop, over here. Come over to Edit. Remember the order of operations. Create the static design. Make things responsive. Animate them, right? In that order, if you please. Because doing it otherwise may result in things that do not line up as you intended. So we started typing out else, then we put out a couple of bars. And the other important thing to remember is when we're pinning, right? We're pinning the upper and lower bar to else. And depending on what feature you pin them to, if we only pin them to 1, it's going to cause things to move with it. And if we pin it to 2, it's going to cause it to stretch because it's trying to pin it to both. And in particular, the important thing to remember is it's not scaling, right? The margin is not scaling. The margin is being maintained. So if you look at the distance, say, between the edge of the E and the edge of the little embellishment there, edge of ... right? That margin is being maintained as these things are being pulled out. So experimenting around, getting some practice in with this, and you'll be able to anticipate what's happening. Then you'll be able to make use of it. Memorizing all the rules is not quite as good as being able to play the game, we'll say. So get out there and play around with it. But great job sending those in. Always happy to see people making use of this particular tool. Incredibly useful when producing titles. All right, and now we've got some cut down direct to camera intros. Oh boy, this is where I kind of crawl into my own skin as we are going to watch watch some of me on here. So wait for this kind of footage to load up. Now, we talked about a number of editing techniques with this to get into moving this stuff around. And let me just fade up. Let me just push up sliders on here, and we'll make sure that I'm actually sending. Yeah, it's going out to the place. So hopefully you are able to hear this audio coming to you. As possible. We're going to look at some effects, some transitions, all very quiet of Adobe Premiere, ideally under 15. But the idea is all inside we're using these techniques to try to hide some of our edits, right? And that way we can pinch more time out of something. We can remove more time. We can move breaths and ums and ahs and likes, all of those little speaking bugaboos that take up time. So we can go from 20 seconds down to 14. It feels like we're pinching pennies, but we definitely are, because we want to be as lean as possible with this stuff. And so let's have a look at what OW sent us. Oh no, it's more of me on the screen. Let's see. Now, I don't know where the audio is going, but it looks like pop, pop, pop. I like it. So with these types of things, we did some zooming in. Oh, and we got a slow fade and a bit of a realignment here, which I believe, yes. So that is being caused by the morph cut, right? Now, the more disparate two things are when you apply the morph cut, the more noticeable it's going to be. Excuse me. So always keep that in mind when we are morphing our cuts. But play around with those and download the project files. Download the project files and check out what we've done and how they work together to produce these effects. I've tried to label them in here so that you can enjoy that stuff. All right. Then, week 2, we transition into some After Effects stuff. We only had 3 days of doing that, but I think we did great jobs with that. So step 1, let's have a look at some animated maps. Hold on, we're going to open that up in After Effects so we can enjoy our animated maps that we did. These beautiful maps. We were bringing in some footage. We were drawing paths on them, trimming those paths to move along them, and then animating our camera around, right? And let's have a look at what we got. We got a couple of them in here. Cuddly, bringing this in, loving it. Now, they brought in some 3D objects. If you use the After Effects beta, as you might call it, you can bring in 3D objects and manipulate them. It's a new feature. It's an amazing feature. Download the beta. Try it out. Now, one little critique that I would have of this is let's frame up the whole path. If we're moving back to display the path, let's frame that whole bad boy up. Chudley. There it is. There you are. Chudley. I've spelled it wrong. That's what happens when I download the files and I spell it wrong. Sorry about that, David. But I'm loving the use of this. I think the camera movement is nice and smooth. The compression has absolutely borked us up on here, but I think you did a great job getting this thing together. And hopefully you're enjoying the 3D object import. I got to play around with that more myself. And now we've got OW coming in here with another one of these, another banger. Hey, now we're getting some orbiting coming in. Whoosh, getting way more experimental with it. And then snapping up. Oh, and then these things are moving. Ah! So I like it. I like these kind of orbiting advanced camera moves here. Really playing around with it. That's what we like to see. With these types of things, whoosh, I think this is a good angle. I think if you just want to pull back a little bit more to frame this up. But great to see people making use of the camera, playing around in here, trying out new things. I think, is there some tilt shift going on? There's definitely some background going on back here, which I definitely did not cover. When you get to a low angle, we got to put something back there. I usually just avoid having to do those angles myself. But if you run into an area like this, you can see where the map kind of terminates back here, right? There's not enough map to show more from this angle. We can use things like the motion tile effect or the reptile, and that can really be helpful to extend your 3D assets if you need to, or your 2D assets to make them kind of larger back there. All right, then we did some data-driven graphs. That's what we like to see. Love some data. And in our more advanced example here, there was a lot of data getting thrown around. There's a lot of things happening. Really trying to rip off the Vox Media style graphs. That's always steal from the best. And we got a submission on that, which is great to see. It's a challenging project. I'm not gonna lie. This is one of the more challenging challenges that I've brought to the table. But here we see indeed data points moving. The line is responding. Say we're getting halfway there. So keep at it. Keep plugging at these things, and really, really keep going deep until you achieve. We want to get there with it. And don't feel too bad about just grabbing the project file and dissecting it from there. I encourage everyone, go to the video, download the project file. These are yours to make use of. Heck, just deploy this in your own YouTube videos out there. You have my permission to make use of this at your leisure. But definitely dip in. I know there's a lot of lines of code to parse, but I think we did a pretty good job covering it on Challenge Day. So hopefully you can, looking at this and looking at that, that'll explain what's happening, how we are using the linear expression to evaluate the change in one property to move us between the two data points that we want to be moving between. So hopefully that will make sense. Anyway, the final thing we wanted to close out on chill vibes. Start 2023 with chill vibes. I know we've only got a couple of minutes to talk about this stuff, but this was a lot of keyframing and looping and producing this chill meditative loop so that people can do some deep breathing along with it. And we had a couple of submissions. Chudley brought this one in, and we got 5 points on it. A little bit of forward and backwards here. I'm not sure if that was an intentional bit or not, but it kind of works with this type of thing. If you ever find that your properties are kind of moving in a direction that you don't want, sometimes it is down to the easing of those specific keyframes. And, but I like it. I like the solid gold. Looks good. I can never get gold to look right. Never, not once. Not once have I gotten anything to have a golden gradient on it and look good. But there's one more. Oh, wait, I think I got a couple more. We have some light leaks. No, wait. Oh, no, I've only got time for one more thing. Very well. We're going to have to look at my Twitter menchies here. Because I did get one submission that came in here from IA Faruqi, who sent this in, tweeted it at me. Send them into the Discord, folks. Discord's fun. See if I can get this to load now that I've moved it onto this screen. There we go. So they've gone for a nice video in the background here, moving through. Now, we'll warn you, it's hard to make video loop. So there's 2 ways you can do it, I will advise. One, time remap that footage and ping pong it back and forth, or crossfade one piece of footage into itself so that it's crossfading through. But I think that'll be a challenge for another day. So make sure you tell the powers that be that you want more video challenges, if you would, in your life, and I'd love to bring them to you. But thank you for being with me for these 2 weeks. It was a lot of fun. I hope we all learned something from this process. I know I sure did. My own limitations, but that's more of a me thing. But thank you for being with me on this. It's a lot of fun. It's always great to see people here in the chat. It's so wonderful to see your submissions. Join the Discord, get active on there. If you have any questions about After Effects and Premiere, get at me anytime. You can find me on Twitter, on Instagram. And if you want to see more streams about After Effects, if you're curious about that, I'm actually here every Friday. So come and hang out with that. A little self-promotion for me. But stick with Adobe Live today. There's a lot of great things coming up. I believe coming up next, we've got some sound mixing in Premiere Pro, and then we're going to have some painting techniques, it looks like. Just having a look at the schedule like I've seen it for the first time. Anyway, thanks again. Stay creative, be kind to each other, and I'll see you all around the internet. Bye for now.